Len, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you, great to catch up. I would love if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, name, title, tell us about Excellware and what it is that you guys do.
Sure. So I'm Len Krause. I'm the owner of Excellware. I actually started this business in 1974 with my father, and I'm still doing it today after all these years. Excellware, we provide software solutions to growing businesses. That's really our focus.
And what kind of businesses and what kind of software?
Well, there's a term out there, ERP, and I guess we could classify ourselves as an ERP solution provider, but not too many people even know what the heck ERP stands for, let alone what it means. So, we provide a software solution for people who have outgrown QuickBooks, but maybe isn't interested in spending the big bucks on the higher end products. So, our solution does everything for mostly a distributor or a multi-location retail business, and it manages almost everything, all of the workflow that is required for a company that buys and sells products.
Cool. And you said you started it with your father in 1974. So, there weren't a lot of software companies around back in 1974. You want to talk about what that was like, and what did Excellware look like, in the 70s and 80s, and how has it changed today?
Yeah, so the computers that we sold in 1974 were about the size of a refrigerator. They had a heavy weight in the bottom so they wouldn't tip over, because the disk drive, which was located in the top, was a massive 1.2 megabytes, the hard drive. And the memory, well, we had 32K of memory, not 32 meg or 32 gig, but 32K. So the computers we sold were based on a microdata reality, a microdata hardware, and it was they used an operating system that had one language. It was Business Basic, and it was all wrapped into one. And these were the first computers that had cathode ray terminals, CRTs. Prior to that, everything was cards. And this is a little before the PC came out. So, these were amazing computers where you could do, true online interactive type things. They were really pioneers in the 70s.
So that sounds like business has changed, but was it the same problem you were solving back then, same types of customers? And so and now you've gone from hardware to software. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Back then, they provided all of the hardware, and unfortunately, there was very, very little software written. So that really became the focus of our attention. We developed software and mostly tools. When you build a house, you don't make the bricks or the lumber yourself. You buy them from someplace. Well, software is the same way. You don't start at the finest, most granular component, but rather you build building blocks and connect them together. And so the lack of tools made it, absolutely mandatory that we spent a lot of time building a toolkit. And that's how our product Dynamo tools came to be. That was almost the forerunner to Dynamo. Dynamo is a business application software that uses Dynamo tools. But in fact, we found an opportunity to sell or rent or license, let's say, is the proper term for software these days. The Dynamo tools to other people who are developing in the same platform, business basic space that we were in. So that became the foundation of our two products today.
I love the analogy between building a house and starting with the tools and piecing it together. And I can imagine that you are decades ahead of people who are learning that today, where they've either overthought, overbuilt, built something that they thought was the right solution and kind of were didn't have the customers first. And so I bet it was helpful for you guys to have customers from the hardware days to the software, to knowing the tools that they needed, and then to today where, you know, you weren't building it in a vacuum and actually had real customer relationships. So you knew the tools that they needed.
Yeah, you know, one of our very first customers was Cleveland Trust, later became Ameritrust, and later became part of Key Bank. And our company, which was called Computer Dynamics at the time, provided the first software for Cleveland Trust, first in the country to communicate with the Federal Reserve Bank, kind of like the forerunner to what like maybe an ACH system is today. But this is mostly for bank to bank transactions where a member bank of the Federal Reserve System would you know, send and receive funds, you know, electronically. Never had been done before electronically. Previously, it was all done through phone calls with people listening and recording the conversations to make sure that the transactions were exactly as intended. And so we ended up with a large variety of customers in those days. We were a dealership for the hardware manufacturer. So we pretty much had to do whatever they asked us to do, you know, or whatever customers we encountered. You know, today, businesses are much more vertically focused, and our history of being somewhat broader makes it a little bit more challenging for us because we've never really focused as narrowly as many of the other players in the software industry have. But it gave us good insights into so many different types of businesses. So that's the fun part of the different people that we met along the way.
And you mentioned that your solutions really come into play when folks are outgrowing their current setup or outgrowing QuickBooks. What is it that they're missing? What is it that what's the gap that you fill, or what when they hit that limitation? What is the opportunity? What is it that they're missing until they get to work with Dynamo and Excellware?
Yeah, it varies, but I'll tell you about some of our recent customers. One of our most recent customers is an industrial distributor in Lansing, Michigan, and they were using QuickBooks, and they represent, maybe 20 major manufacturers and probably 80 minor manufacturers. And of those 20 manufacturers, they collectively have about 800,000 SKUs. And they tried putting all those into QuickBooks, and QuickBooks would just crash. They couldn't let more than one person use it at a time. It just couldn't do what they wanted. But the owner wanted to be able to quote to their customers very quickly any one of the 120,000 different Parker Hannifin products that they have available to sell. They didn't want to have to hang up, call Parker, wait for them to call back, tell them what they're interested in, get a quote, turn it around, and give it to the customer. They want to be able to answer the customer right now and say, yes, I can get you that product. You know, it's $175. And so what we did for them is imported from the manufacturer's provided spreadsheets, literally close to 1 million SKUs. And it does it with great speed. And so that was one of the things that really solved a problem for a customer, was just being able to import massive amounts of data and make it very quickly searchable and available at their fingertips, so they could provide, you know, quicker quotes to the customers.
That makes sense. I can imagine. Those aren't small numbers you guys are talking about. So I can see where QuickBooks would crash. And so when we look, just take it from the business down to Len, how does your week break down? How do you stay productive? What are some of the either, you know, habits, routines, the tools that you go to that help you stay on track and stay productive? What are some of the ways that you can stay on task?
First of all, I think as many of us small business owners, we're challenged to maintain a balance in our lives, right? So, you know, you certainly have work, but you also have family and church and activities and recreation and friends. And so right now we're empty nesters. We just became grandparents for the first time, our 5-month-old grandson. So right now, like, we go to Chicago, where he lives, once a month for a few days. And fortunately, I work in in a place where I can do my work from anywhere. And if I work 4 or 5 hours a day, that's fine. So I live on the North Coast outside of Cleveland, and the weather here in the spring, the summer, and the fall is just awesome. It's beautiful. It's temperate, not too cold, not too hot. So in the summer months, I probably am a more typical worker, working maybe 40 hours a week. I take off 1 or 2 afternoons and play golf. I enjoy working around the yard and the weekends. And being empty nesters, I don't have as much demand on those types of family activities you do when your kids are growing up and they're being taken all over the place. So both of my children live, pretty far away. So it's not like we can get there and get there quickly. But work-wise, after whatever 46 years of having an office, I closed the office in May during COVID last year, which was, I don't know, a big decision for us because we've always had an office. And now that we're working from home, that has changed a little bit of the work dynamic. Certainly there's less travel time for me or for my employees. But there was already a tendency to be working from home on a part-time basis. So this seems to be the natural evolution. So my time, I spend the first part of my day usually where, meeting with employees and following up, kind of making plans, identifying things maybe that kept them from achieving their goals in the previous day. Some of the people we don't need to meet with every day, and maybe once a week. I'm very open, so I certainly accept telephone calls and respond to emails from customers. Those are priorities that are at the top of my list. I do kind of tend to stay a little focused though, and maybe a little anal about it, that if I've got a task, I really do everything I can to work on that and try to avoid interruptions. But in the summer, I start early, and if the afternoon's nice, I may not be here in the afternoon. I've had a long career, so I think I need a little bit of extra time off too.
Yeah, well, your point around as business owners, entrepreneurs, you have to stay balanced, and you got to make it's easy to get called tunnel vision and with work, and maybe even like a version of tunnel mentalism where you can't turn it off if you don't intentionally walk away and make time for a little bit of golf and an afternoon off. And so that is, I think it's turning it off is just as important to productivity as being on all the time. You gotta make time for yourself. So I hear you loud and clear there. So in 46 years running this business, I'm sure you've had some great mentors, some great coworkers, folks that you've learned a lot from. What's been some of the best advice that you've received or that you would share with someone else? And then I also like to ask on the other side, what's some of the worst advice that maybe you've received? But let's start with the best.
Well, I think, some of the best advice is a reminder that people, are your most valuable asset. People really make the company, not so much the products or the hardware that you sell, but the people. And so you need to, I don't want to use the term manage, but you need to treat them with respect. You need to listen to them. And everybody's a little bit different, and so you have to, respond differently to different people's needs. But I think probably the best advice was that to listen to your people. They're going to be your most valuable asset. On the worst side, I'm an engineer by training, and by work. We call ourselves software engineers. My degree is actually in electrical engineering because they didn't have software engineering when I went to school. But the areas that I don't think I am very strong in, I often seek out experts. And so I hired a management consulting company, very expensive management consulting company, to help me with some long-range planning and to fill some key roles within our company. And I regret that the person that they recommended and that I hired probably had the shortest tenure of any Excellware employee. And I spent a fortune on the management firm and getting this person, and it just didn't work out at all. So the worst advice I think was not just this particular hiring, but the advice of that management consulting firm that I thought was, big experience. Matter of fact, they even went out of business within a year of my relationship, and they had been in business 50 plus years. So I don't know. That was probably the worst advice that I followed,
Well, I mean, to your first point around it's all about people. People make all the difference, and getting the right people on board is key. But mistakes do happen, and sometimes folks are better at selling than delivering, or they're good up front, and that don't always follow through, whatever the case may be.
You just have to learn from those mistakes. We all make them.
Yeah. And I whenever I make them, I always feel like, oh, I thought I was done making them, and then
you could never be a software engineer, Patrick, because we develop by identifying and squashing bugs. Computers are perfect, people aren't, right? So every line of code we write, there's some risk of a problem. And sure, you want to reduce the number of bugs that you create and you embed. But one of the things I like about the business basic environment that we still are programming in, even though it's now a Java dialect, is it allows us to test at a very fine granularity code before it's done. We don't have to work on a program for 40 hours and then test it and thoroughly test it and find several bugs. Instead, you can write a paragraph of code or even one line of code and test it immediately and get that feedback, get it corrected, and move on. So as a developer, that's our role, is to make the software, as easy to use as possible, as bug-free as possible, and I follow that keep it simple, stupid philosophy in so many things that I do, not just in the software ease of use, but even in the workflow of your business. How do you get vendor invoices by email? How do you pay them? How do you track them? How do you store things? And as we moved away from paper and more towards, electronic storage, it's another opportunity for us to help our customers implement those types of systems.
Yeah. And then related to sales and selling, which I'm sure you're involved in a lot of your customer relationships and new business. What's been the biggest lesson there when it comes to sales?
Yeah. I never considered myself good at that. My father was the one that had the personality and was really great at selling. But I think being honest, being friendly, being open, and listen, just like I said to your employees, is the best way to sell for a customer. Don't get too pushy, don't get in their way, but be available. We had a customer, like I said, we've had so many that have been great influences on me, but one in particular, his name was Ed Conrad. And Ed owned, I think, 6 Goodyear Tire Center stores and ultimately grew it to 35. He was the most positive and caring person I think I've ever met. Every time you'd see him, he'd have something nice to say about you. And in front of other people, if you met him at a social event, he'd always point out to me or, someone in the group and say what a good job he's done for them, and how he was creative and came up with solutions to our problems. And, he took his business from nothing to, into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think a lot of it, was based on his attitude and his, he obviously could sell. I mean, he could sell tires to people who probably didn't need them, but he was a great guy. And I think I found fortunate to have met a lot of people like Ed during my career.
Yeah, no, it's people. Again, coming back to people, but particularly with sales, it's about trust, comfort, and likability. Likability helps you get that trust and comfort. And another thing someone once told me, and I think this is true, but that the best salespeople, they got a wife, 3 kids, a brand new car, and a mortgage, and they're motivated. But even with that, you still have to be, you still have to have that positive attitude and bring positivity and good energy into the relationship. And otherwise, if people don't like talking to you, they're not gonna want to stay around for very long. And
right.
keep going. So what's on deck for Excellware and Dynamo through the rest of 2021, coming out of COVID, and just for the next 46 years? What is this going to be? Is this going to be a family business in the long run? What's the plan, and what's the kind of short run, long run outlook for the company look like?
Sure. Because we have such deep roots, our software, some might consider to be old and stodgy looking. It is character based and not graphical, so it doesn't use a mouse much. And for a while, I thought that really didn't matter. Matter of fact, a few of our customers, one of them in particular, that we installed a mouse driven solution for, hated it. They weren't nearly as productive as they were with the old character based. But on the other hand, the technology changes rapidly, and certainly browser-based solutions are the norm today. And so about 5 years ago, we outset on a plan to modernize our application, make it graphical in nature. So you could use a mouse, yet we were careful not to take away the speed that you could achieve just using the keyboard. And so we had, as we talked about some failures, we had a couple directions that we went down for several months and then backpedaled and came up with another path. We've been on that path now maybe 4 years, and we've only released a small percentage of our 400 plus menu items that are the new refactored graphical look and feel. But I do believe we're kind of like rounding third and heading home in that project, and that over the next 12 months, I suspect that we could have 50% or more of our menu items be modern. And the reason why it's taken that long is because we had to build that toolkit that we talked about earlier. So now we have a Dynamo Web toolkit, a brand new product, and we spent a fortune on it to build these tools to help others, not just Excellware, but others build graphical business applications using this business basic language quicker, easier, more reliable, more consistently, independent of who the developer is. And so as this toolkit matures, we're now able to take those components of Dynamo and use the new toolkit, reuse some of the business rules and logic that are embedded in the programs, and come up with something that looks new and different. It's more attractive. So in terms of technology, that's what our focus has been and will be over the next few months. And I hope as we get closer to that point in time that we can expand our staff in so many areas. We'll need more developers, we'll need more support people, we hope, as hopefully more customers will like our product. We'll probably need more salespeople to assist with prospects and giving technical training, technical demos and user training. There'll be a lot of things that we'll have to do. I really like videos, and creating good documentation and good videos and tutorials will be important, especially on our more technical products. So we have a lot of ideas, and we just hope that we'll have sufficient business to continue that growth. In terms of the 46 years, no, my family, my son's an architect in New York City. My daughter's successfully working in Chicago, so they are not so much interested in the business. However, we have partnered with a couple other companies who have a similar business, and our plans are to continue that partnership so that they'll be able to take over the development and marketing and sales of our products. Probably they could either merge the products together into one company or continue to operate, Excellware as a independent company. So that's kind of like where we're headed, but I'm hanging in there. I want to try and finish this, major refactoring project and take it to the next level before I'm ready to retire.
Got it. That's exciting though. I mean, it sounds like you guys are coming to kind of the gratifying part of a long process that you've been working on and modernizing your solution stack and rolling that out to your customer base. And I know that's can take a lot of work. Sounds like you guys are have put it in. So congrats on that. And I look forward to seeing that roll out and hopefully the next few months by the end of the year. Len, for folks that want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Well, I'm pretty easily accessible. So my email is len@excellware.com. That works. We have an 800 number on our company website. You can reach out to me there. And I'm also somewhat active in LinkedIn. I'm trying to get better at that, partially at the advice of this great marketing company that I hired called Nerdwise.
Thanks, Len. Well, look, I appreciate the conversation. This has been great. It's been awesome learning about the Excellware story, and look forward to continuing to watch it unfold.
Hey, thanks so much, Patrick.